The views and opinions expressed in this podcast are simply that, opinions. All are presumed innocent until proven otherwise in a court of law. Sensitive topics are discussed. Discretion is advised.
The examination of a lead detective gets testy as things heat up in the Utah family plot murders trial. And down in Florida, former OnlyFans model Courtney Clenny's case was back in front of a judge. Will this case ever go to trial? In California, an arrest made in the body in the trunk mystery connected to singer David, and he's not the one in custody. The court of law is done for the day in those cases. Let's call to order Court of Opinion. Welcome to Court of Opinion. I'm Julia Jenaé. Thank you for joining us this hour as we begin in Utah. A man is standing trial for what prosecutors say was a family murder plot that ended with 7 gunshots and a father who never made it home. Defendant Kevin Ellis is accused of conspiring with his mother and sister to kill his brother-in-law, Matthew Restelli, and then staging the scene to make it look like self-defense. Now, Ellis' sister, Kevin Restelli, she was married to the victim, and she is the first to plead guilty to her role in the murder. She took the stand last week. She testified against her brother. And today, the lead detective was the one in the hot seat. Before we get to our guest panel's takes on the cases, let's get you caught up on the testimony that jurors heard today.
I did a brief walkthrough of the main level where Mr. Restelli was, but I did also search upstairs in a room that was later identified as Kevin Ellis's.
How was it identified as Kevin Ellis's?
His California driver's license was in there, as well as his cell phone. There's also articles of clothing that appeared to belong to an adult male.
Did you find anything else in that room?
Yes, also on that nightstand where I located those, I found a rolled up $1 bill as well as a red hotel key card, and both had a white powdery substance on them. As I was typing the affidavit for the search warrant, I called a few of the responding officers who gave me a brief description of what they seen inside of the residence. They described multiple shell casings on the ground, and then I was able to observe the picture that Officer Laycock took of Mr. Restelli. The position of the knife in Mr. Restelli's hand stood out to me. It seemed odd and suspicious. It appeared that the blade of the knife was facing towards Mr. Restelli. His arm was also outstretched straight. So I did find it suspicious.
At some point, did you find out what hand the deceased was?
Yes, later it was told to us by Diane Restelli that Matt was left-handed primarily.
At what point did you figure out that the decedent had also been shot through the wrist?
That was a couple days later during the autopsy. I attended the autopsy, and that's when I first observed the wound in Mr. Restelli's right arm.
If I could turn your attention to number 191, what date is that Tracy searched, and what did she search?
So that is February 15th, 2024. At 7:09 a.m. It is searched. When is Donna Adelson next hearing?
And will you tell the jury who she is?
So Donna Adelson was arrested for...
Protection Foundation.
When did you decide to figure out who she was?
So there's multiple searches in Tracy's internet history of the Adelson family.
That's non-responsive.
When did you first see the Donna Adelson search? What about those searches made you interested in who Donna Adelson was?
Just because of the frequency it was being searched.
On June 27th, did she search anything that had any evidentiary value to you?
Yes, on June 27th at 9:56 a.m., she searched Alpine Cemetery. 9:55 a.m., cemetery near Alpine. 9:54 a.m., cemetery American Fork. 9:54 a.m., cemetery. 9:38 a.m., Alpine Cemetery.
On July 12th, 2024, do you know how many searches were done on Tracy's phone?
Yes, there's one.
And Do you know what time that was and what was searched?
At 2:13 p.m. on July 12th, 2024, she searches "It's Happening" meme.
A lot of details coming out in front of this jury today, so let's get right to our power panel. We got a fantastic panel for you this evening. We've got criminal defense investigator Charles Milstead with us, trial attorney Madeline Somerville, and criminal defense attorney Franz Borghardt. Welcome to all of you. Thanks so much for being on. Madeline, we just heard something there at the end that I want to start with. Wasn't really planning on starting with it, but the Donna Adelson factor that can't be avoided in this case.
Yes.
First of all, let's talk about why it would have been so big to get all of it out in front of this jury.
Yeah, so first of all, it is something that's in the public consciousness. And as a jury consultant, I always like to make sure that we address what's going on in the world today, because even if you don't think it's affecting you as a juror, it is. It's on your mind. And so because, right, they might have inferred something from the fact that she searched it. What I would have done as an attorney, though, I would have filed a motion in limine. I would have kept all of that information out, because simply because she searched for that information doesn't imply guilt or innocence whatsoever. So I think it was damning in a way that wasn't actually fair.
And you know, we actually didn't hear everything that a juror would have needed to know if they don't know about the case. So
yeah.
Every time the detective tried to talk about who Donna Adelson was, why it was so impactful for him to find that in the searches, he kept getting objected to. So Charles, I want to ask you, do you think the average Utah juror knows who Donna Adelson is and would have made that connection just by hearing, oh, someone connected to this case, search for Donna Adelson?
Not necessarily. And you know, the thing that comes to mind is almost any avid court TV fan searches court cases all the time.
Right.
That doesn't make them an accomplice to something. It doesn't mean they're plotting a murder.
Getting ideas.
Or they're researching anything, right?
Yeah.
They're just, it's of interest to them. And so it's how the defense ends up spinning that, obviously, is what becomes critical to it. But yeah, I don't know that they necessarily know or don't know.
Yeah, Franz, so how does that impact a jury? I mean, this would have been explosive information for the prosecution, but they weren't ever able to say Donna Adelson arrested for conspiring with family members to kill son-in-law. I mean, that's the most important part, but there was a foundation objection, then there was a hearsay objection when the detective tried to say, well, I realized there was a dateline and I learned all this information. It was shut down today.
Look, guys, I've Googled Adelson. Doesn't mean I'm a killer. I'm just throwing that out there. So look, guys, the problem is, and this is the problem, and our jury consultant, who is much smarter than I am, will tell you, the problem is we don't know what they're doing when they get home. They're ordered not to go searching for Adelson, Donna Adelson. But let's just be honest, Julia. They're going home and searching for Donna Adelson, and that is the problem. Is we don't have we can't beam into their household. We cannot look at what they're doing. So as a defense attorney, I am terrified. As a former prosecutor, I'm just sitting back saying, yeah, y'all aren't going to look that up or anything.
See, maybe I'm a purist about it. I don't want to believe that all jurors look everything up.
All of them don't. I would say the vast majority of them take their job very, very seriously.
Great to hear. Great to hear.
Yes.
Unless it's the foreperson, the person that ends up being elected foreperson that does and then becomes the dominant person in the room.
That's a danger.
That's the danger.
We
right?
heard a lot from this investigator on the stand. What did you make of his testimony, Charles? You're an investigator, especially for defense teams. Talk about how important that can be to a case for the jury to hear that laid out.
Oh, I think it becomes critical because they're part of the prosecution's attempt to tell the story, and they're sort of building the narrative. They're laying out the theory, and so the prosecutors are using the detective, are using these investigators to essentially tie these, connect these different the pieces of evidence together and to start building, these blocks of the case. And so to the extent that the investigator is compelling in the way that they handle themselves on direct, and to the extent that they can sort of endure an aggressive cross-examination is really the strength and the weakness of a good investigator. And a lot of times it comes down to that. You may have, even in the private sector, you may have somebody gets retained simply based on the strength of their ability to testify. And so you could have the world's greatest investigator, but if they don't deliver on the stand, then they have very much diminished value.
Especially during that cross. And today's cross really got testy. I mean, there were times when the defense attorney was yelling that she was the one who planned it. She's the one who had the motive, but you don't see anything about Kevin Ellis. I do want to play a little bit of one of the sisters who's not connected to this family plot, according to the prosecution, but she took the stand in this case. Take a listen to Rachel Jorgensen.
That's, did not make me feel good. It's scary and
Take your time.
that's intimidating.
Did you think you were assisting your mom and your sister in luring someone to their death?
No.
Ellen, can you react to that kind of emotional testimony from another family member? What does that do to a jury? But it also shows just this family dynamic of how they're all relating to each other.
I think that's a really good way to put it, is that it's about the family dynamic. But also, I found her testimony to be quite compelling. All of her body language implied that she was completely sincere. And usually when somebody has to speak against someone that they're close to, people expect you to behave a certain way, right? They expect you to be awkward. And all of that awkwardness kind of went out the window when she let her heart out. So I think that might have been the most compelling testimony of the day.
Franz, I want to bring you in on it because the prosecution has to prove the case against Kevin Ellis, obviously. But the defense hasn't said that they don't believe what the sister or the mother's involvement was. They've really distanced him from it. But how do you do that when he pulled the trigger?
So it's very simple. He pulled the trigger. He acted in self-defense, but he was not a part of this plot. This plot to kill this innocent victim. He had no. Why kill him? But for self-defense. That has to be what you're kind of. Yeah, she's searching for all sorts of crazy stuff on her phone. That's not him. That's not Kevin. Kevin has no reason. Kevin Ellis has no reason in the world, no motive to kill this person. I mean, he's already with this woman. He doesn't need to kill anybody to be with her. The children are not an obstacle to that. So that, if you're a defense attorney, that's kind of what you're honing in on, is you guys have a great case against the mother of the children, but I haven't heard any direct evidence as to him, and nothing is dispelling the fact that he maybe was working in self-defense.
All right, we actually have to leave it here because we're going to keep talking about this case. I want to get everyone's opinions on the evidence that they do have in front of this jury. When we come back, we're keeping our focus there. We're taking a closer look at some of the most compelling evidence that the jurors have seen so far in this case. A closer look, slow it down, look at it, take a deep dive. Don't go anywhere.
The Court TV podcast will return.
Welcome back. We are continuing our coverage of the family plot murders trial happening out in Utah. And there's been a lot of action throughout the entire trial so far. So for our best evidence segment, we are breaking down the best evidence these jurors have seen up until this point. First up, here's what our Court of Opinion team chose as some of the most compelling physical evidence inside of the courtroom. And this is the witness testimony from two state witnesses detailing the suspicious placement of the knife in the alleged victim, Matthew Restelli's hand. Now, Kevin claims, he's the defendant, he claims he shot in self-defense after Restelli tried attacking him with that knife. But officers say the knife was found in his non-dominant hand. They found out from his mother he was actually left-handed and that the blade was facing a different way. Take a listen.
I'm noticing that the blade of the knife is facing towards Mr. Restelli.
Okay, is that significant to you in any way?
Yes.
How so?
After hearing that the defendant, Mr. Ellis, was claiming self-defense, I believe the blade would be facing in a different position than it would be being shown in these photos.
The position of the knife in Mr. Restelli's hand stood out to me. It seemed odd and suspicious. It appeared that the blade of the knife was facing towards Mr. Restelli. His arm was also outstretched straight. So I did find it suspicious.
At some point, did you find out what hand the deceased was?
Yes, later it was told to us by Diane Restelli that Matt was left-handed primarily.
Let's bring back in our power panel, Charles Milstead, Madeline Somerville, and Franz Borchardt. Charles, criminal defense investigator, I'm going to start with you. Would that have raised some flags for you if you're seeing a scene and you've got a blade facing towards him and his arm outstretched?
Well, let's remember, I'm a defense investigator, so my job is to search for reasonable doubt. So one thing that I just picked up on is he said he was left-handed primarily. Now, I just know from personal experience, I'm right-handed. I sign things, I write with my right hand. I'm left-hand dominant. I throw with my left hand. And so I think the defense needs to, it really needs to make some, create some reasonable doubt about whether he is, in fact, is dominant right-handed or left-handed. And then also needs to attack sort of the integrity of the scene. Keep in mind, he was shot 7 times, so the body moves, possibly the knife gets moved, gets kicked around. If they can create some reasonable doubt surrounding the actual, where the knife came to rest, it seems like these investigators want to rely on that as that's exactly how he fell, that's how the knife fell out of his hand, it was facing in this direction, and the defense needs to attack that notion and that is in fact factual, and that maybe it may not have looked different at some different point.
Franz, I see you nodding and shaking your head. What's your opinion of this evidence?
Man, I would have been objecting.
Me too.
All day long.
Me too, brother.
These guys can't testify to biomechanics.
That's right.
And I'm sorry, what they're testifying feels a little thin. Like, I'm sorry, when you encountered the body, was he standing up and holding the knife facing himself, or had he fallen? And things happen when you fall. None of these guys were qualified to testify that, towards that. So I would have been objecting to high kingdom. Now, that said, a good defense attorney is, like Charlie said, is going to have a field day with this on cross-examination. The other piece is, as a former prosecutor, man, the non-dominant hand thing, it's just the right kind of circumstantial evidence to make some eyebrows go up. So I'm not putting the state out yet, but man, oh man, does this feel thin. This argument feels very thin.
It makes you wonder why his mother knew his dominant hand, but his wife of 10 years did not. But what's your reaction? Do you agree with Franz?
Oh, absolutely. The craziest part about it, though, is that one of the gunshots landed in his wrist in his non-dominant hand. So you're telling me that he gets shot in his non-dominant hand and he doesn't let go of the knife? How does that happen, right? It's beyond belief at that point for them to still maintain this defense.
All right, let's move to our second piece of evidence that was shown inside of the courtroom. This one during Kevin Restelli's time on the stand. Remember, she's that key witness who flipped on her brother. And through her testimony, a recording of a phone call between her and Matthew was played. Now, Matthew being the alleged victim in this case. Now, Kevin recorded this call on July 12th, the day of the killing. Now, during the phone call, Matthew tells Kevin he wants to quickly leave upon arriving to her house. And again, it was her house, her mother's house, but Kevin asked him to come inside. Take a listen.
But I think when I get there, I don't think I want to turn the truck off.
Okay.
So I just want to get the car seats in, load it up, and just kind of take off. Is that going to be doable?
Yeah, you'll be here late. Are you going to come inside and help me load up?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. The front door is always unlocked, okay?
Okay.
At 11:55, why did you ask him to come inside?
Because it was part of the plan.
What plan?
The plan to murder him.
Charles, what's your reaction to that kind of evidence? Because telling him the door's unlocked, telling him, no, you need to come inside, that all seems to go to the prosecution's case.
It does, but with regard to this defendant's defense, you would expect that kind of testimony. If she, in fact, set her brother up, if he, in fact, was a pawn, well, of course she's going to turn on him. I mean, what kind of sister would involve her own family in conspiring to murder her ex-husband, right? So, yes, she has no other recourse but to throw him under the bus at this point because she set him up. I mean, that would be the defense point that they would want to hammer home. We would not expect her to testify any differently than that. Why did she record the call?
That is a point, right? It was recorded on her iPad. She was regularly recording all of the calls, but she basically handed the prosecution some really good evidence. Franz, if he's a pawn, how does the defense make sure that is seen by the jury, but for putting him on the stand?
So you can do it through cross. You can start making suggestions. You can say, look, this witness is easy. She is on the Titanic, it's going down, and she's a rat scratching and clawing to save herself. That's an easy cross-examination. She's made her deal. She's made her bed. She has every incentive in the world to testify the way she does. And that becomes the theme of invalidation, right? You're selling out to save yourself, but it's not true. That said, the sad truth is, in a self-defense case, Julia, they always want to hear from the defendant. And so dodging him testifying is problematic.
What would be your recommendation as a jury consultant if you were representing the defense? Would you say, yeah, put him on the stand, the jury needs to see him, see how he is, see that maybe he's not as sharp as his mother and his sister, or no, keep him off the stand?
I absolutely agree with Franz that they want to hear it, but I think that I don't think I've ever recommended that a defendant testify because it's one more opportunity to mess it up. It's one more opportunity for the defendant to put his foot in his mouth.
And I think this one is one of those where the logistics associated with how he would possibly explain why he fired 7 shots, how he felt his life was threatened, the decedent's actions towards him and all you got to get that exactly right, or it can very much and very easily be deconstructed based upon the autopsy, based upon a lot of different things, the trajectory, based upon blood spatter. There's so many ways that the prosecution can go, no,
Speaking
none of that
of
matches.
those shots, let's take a listen to the 911 call made by the neighbor of Tracy Grist. Again, that's the mother whose house everyone was at, and it was made around the time of the death of Matthew Restelli.
I'm pretty sure I just heard gunshots. And there's a car with flashers. I know that her daughter just left her husband in California. So I tried getting a hold of her and I haven't heard anything.
And the gunshot, was it one shot? Did you hear multiple?
It sounded, I don't know, maybe 6.
6 shots?
I think. I don't know. I don't think it was fireworks.
And that's a huge piece of evidence in this case because we know that they ultimately determined he was shot 7 times, 6 pretty close. Franz, your reaction to that testimony and just the number of gunshots being a part of this case?
So if I have the budget to hire Madeline, I'm hopefully going to have the budget to hire a self-defense expert that talks about force and talks about the fact that while 6 or 7 shots sounds excessive, a gun versus a knife, there are many a situation where that's a fair fight, and firing that many times, you're firing until the threat is no longer a threat. I'm going to use that expert to testify on behalf of my client for my client. And remember, at the end of the day, a knife is a deadly weapon. And so you can use a firearm to defend yourself. So it's going to be, I want to have an expert testify to that. I'm talking to Madeline about jury consulting with regard to what do I need to voir dire on so I can prime them and get them ready for it.
Madeline, but does the average juror think that way? I get questions all the time. Why couldn't they have shot him in the shoulder? Why couldn't they have shot him in the leg? Why'd they have to shoot him so many times? I mean, that is a constant thing on people's mind and how they think things go down who've never been in that situation.
So you have to be able to anticipate what questions jurors are going to come up with. And you can try to test it out using focus groups, which is a common tool. But if you are noticing that the same questions keep coming up when you're trying out your arguments, you realize maybe you're telling the story wrong. Maybe you're telling the story in a way that's leading people down the wrong path. But when it comes to this situation here, I think the timeline is going to be the thing that the jurors are really going to hook on, because it sounds impossible to me, right? He would have had to have, the brother would have had to have had the gun on him in order for this to make sense, right? Because between the 911 call and when he's entered the house, when he first enters, it's like a couple of minutes. So he would have had to have had the gun on him.
This is Utah. This is Utah. This is a death penalty firing squad state. People own guns in Utah.
So you're telling me he would have had to have had a kerfuffle with him, right? Gotten a fight, gone to his safe, unlocked it, loaded up the gun, came back and shot him all those times without having any knife wounds on his body. One of the things about jurors is that you have to give them a story. If you don't fill in the blanks for them, they will fill it in themselves.
Here's the story that I think they're going to wrestle with. I think one of the biggest facts that they're going to wrestle with or questions they're going to be asking themselves. If Kevin is a pawn and he finds himself in this circumstance, and for 8 minutes his mother and his sister are conspiring to cover this up and to get their story straight and all that, why isn't he the first one to go in law enforcement when he realizes he's been used as a pawn, right? Why isn't he the first guy to go in there and to get immunity or to get a deal?
And that's a great question for us to leave it on. We do have to leave it there, but thank you to our panel for their opinions. We've got to get to our break. When we come back, we're going beyond the gavel. We're breaking down the biggest true crime cases, including a victim of domestic abuse or a calculated killer. Giving you an update on the case against an OnlyFans model turned murder defendant.
Now, back to the Court TV podcast.
Your questions are making much of an...
I am. Right now, like, I have not always been a victim, but, like, right now, I'm a freaking victim in this situation. I'm scared to go downstairs to walk my dogs. I just walked him, and I told him, you don't have a chance, and now, all of a sudden, this is all happening.
What's his name?
Christian Tobecha Kurobin.
Christian?
Please, just, like, don't get me kicked out of my own apartment.
Let's go beyond the gavel. Was she the victim or the villain? We're looking at the case of an OnlyFans model turned murder defendant. Courtney Clenny is charged with second-degree murder in the 2022 death of her boyfriend, Christian Abumseli. He was killed inside of their luxury Miami apartment that they shared together. Prosecutors say that she intentionally stabbed him unprovoked, while her defense insists that she acted in self-defense after a domestic dispute. Now, a big question surrounding this case is whether Clenny was the victim of domestic abuse or the perpetrator. Their surveillance video showed the two getting into an argument in an elevator. It has circulated after prosecutors released it. It shows Clenny hitting Abumseli multiple times and him trying to deflect. There's also body cam footage of first responders arriving to the scene, showing Clenny declaring she was trying to save him that day. Take a listen.
Baby, wake up, wake up. Okay.
Get up.
Please, don't. Please.
Listen. Get him up. Get up right. You can jump at the floor. I'll help him out. Get up.
Oh, no. I can't let this, okay. It wasn't. Please.
Listen, sit down. Do me a favor, sit down. Do not
Why
move.
are you yelling at me?
Do not move.
Why are you yelling at me?
Do not move, sit down.
Okay,
we don't know what's going on. We don't know what happened.
I'm terrified
So
for him.
right now, yeah, don't worry. They're helping him. So just sit down. Don't move, okay?
Oh my God. I'm covered in his blood because I'm trying to save him.
I understand that.
I'm trying to save him.
I understand that.
And if I don't, and y'all can't, then what will I do with him?
All right.
I need him. He's like my other half.
Now, Clenny's attorneys were back in court on Friday for a brief hearing where dates were set for a judge to hear arguments on several motions. That includes a defense motion to strike a state witness, Dr. Michael Branham, who is a domestic violence expert for the state. And the defense also trying to suppress some illegal recordings. They called them illegally gotten. This case has faced multiple delays, with the defense accusing prosecutors of misconduct along the way and of destroying evidence and improperly accessing privileged materials. The list is long. Her trial date is now set for April 27th, marking almost exactly 4 years since Restelli's death. Let's get our Power Panel's take on all of this. Charles Millstadt, Madeline Somerville, and Franz Borghardt. Franz, I'm actually going to start with you. Tell me your opinion of this case and where we are in it.
Well, first of all, OnlyFans doesn't require a Juilliard level of training for acting, because she comes across as a horrible actress. She may in fact be a domestic violence victim, but she's not. Her optics are not coming across great. The elevator video is horrible as well. My concern about this case is, if in fact the prosecution is playing funny business, are they going to take a otherwise good case, a good solid murder case, and destroy it by creating issues where there wasn't issues? Misconduct? I don't know. So that is something I am concerned about, but I think otherwise her goose may be cooked.
What do you think, Madeline? What's your opinion of the case and whether or not she is the victim? They're arguing battered spouse syndrome, or the villain.
Oh, yeah, that goose is cooked, it's done, take it out of the oven. It's over. I think that video is extremely damning, and I think that because of the climate that we live in right now, I think that people are actually going to be excited to give justice in a case where they wouldn't expect it to be served in that direction, because it looks very much from the video that we saw like he was working very hard to try to keep her off of him without asserting himself at all. And I think it would be very easy for a jury to believe that he continued to just defend himself and that she lost her temper. Also, I think that the Johnny Depp Amber Heard trial had a massive influence on the American public in looking at how crazy situations can get, but not absolving the woman from the potential for being the aggressor in this case. So I think that it's cooked, done, take it out of the oven. I think it's over.
That's a good point about setting the scene in terms of a really volatile, toxic relationship.
Yeah.
I want to play a bit from a alleged secret recording of Courtney Clenny that the prosecution wants to use because Christian Restelli took it unbeknownst to the defendant, Courtney Clenny. Take a listen.
Decide whether or not you're done gaslighting me. Decide whether or not you're done gaslighting.
I am mad that you told me to come.
Decide right now.
Courtney, that's a threat. I asked you so many times that I don't know, and I apologize. But you hit me.
Shut the don't.
Charles Millstadt, the defense says these shouldn't be allowed to come in because she didn't know she was being recorded and that they were with the purpose of catching her doing bad deeds. But they say Christian had times that he did bad deeds as well.
Well, I think that's precisely why they probably will come in, because she didn't know, right? This is she's being captured in a spontaneous moment where she doesn't have the ability to do any bad acting. And so, I think they probably do come in. But I think, what you do see is you see a certain, when under attack, you see a guy that's actually fairly, very restrained. You see that she has real disdain, a real lack of respect for him, the way that she speaks to him, and I think that's really going to turn the jury off. And so I agree with Franz. This is a case where, it's only the prosecution can steal defeat from the jaws of victory in this case, because it seems like things are lined up for a successful prosecution. And it looks like a fairly tough case to defend.
Yeah, April 27th, we should expect a trial to start. But Franz, there have been a lot of delays in this case. And it makes me wonder, are we marching towards a potential plea in this case instead of a trial ever happening?
Well, let's not mince words. 4 years for a murder case, while it's not unheard of, it's starting to get a little ripe. Right? The food is starting to spoil a little bit. It needs to either go to trial or needs to plea. Now, What could happen is if they don't get the trial done, she might have a good argument for a speedy trial bond relief kind of situation. But, you know, if I'm her defense attorney, I'm looking for any kind of life raft, any kind of beam of hope to get her a lesser charge, and that would mean a plea. Don't know if she's going to take that plea. Don't know if they're going to offer that plea, but man, oh man, is this one as a defense attorney that you're hoping that there's some kind of safe haven plea out there.
This is a case that we are going to continue to follow. Our power panel is standing by. We need to take a break, but before we do have a clarification note for you. On Friday, during our discussion of the Lindsay Clancy case, there was a clip used of a police officer that aired that was not related to her case. So we've addressed that error as part of our commitment to accuracy here at Court TV. Stay with us. Up next, hot takes, cold facts. Our power panel is going to give their takes on today's top headlines.
This is the Court TV podcast.
Welcome back. Let's get right to our power panel's hot takes on the cold facts, on the big headlines developing today. First up, in California, an arrest was made related to the body in the trunk of singer David's Tesla investigation, but not an arrest related to the death. A notable streamer and friend of the singer, David, was arrested in Montana for failing to appear as a witness in the case. The LA Times reports that Neil Langston had been dodging testifying before a grand jury for months, and that's according to their unidentified police sources. David, whose real name is David Anthony Burke, is at the center of this investigation. You'll recall the 14-year-old Celeste Rivas Hernandez, her decomposing body was found in his vehicle. So this saga continues. Let's bring back in our guests and get their 25-second takes. Charles Milstead, Madeline Somerville, and Franz Borchardt. Madeline, let me start with you. What's your take?
Yeah, so if he is just a witness in this case and he's not involved in any deeper way, then the fact that he didn't show up to me is evidence of Gen Z, right? It doesn't have to mean that he did or didn't do anything.
You say evidence of Gen Z?
Of Gen Z, right? Maybe he doesn't think, I don't know if the rules apply to me or not, right? People sometimes pretend that it's not there. I've sat in so many trials when jurors just didn't show up. I can't tell you how many times that's happened to me.
Okay, so he's the guy who is he's not on the hook for this, but he is a friend of the person whose body the trunk was found in. So what do you think? Do you have to go looking for people when they skip out on jury?
Well, he's clearly
subpoenas?
under subpoena.
Yeah.
So, you know, obviously he didn't take it very seriously.
Right.
He doesn't understand. It's the court that is compelling him to appear, whether he likes it or not. And so it's, you know, it's a good lesson. Our criminal justice system depends upon this. Our law enforcement, our ability to investigate cases depends upon cooperation and to exonerate people or to implicate them. So
very true. Franz Borchardt, that confirms for us that the grand jury is meeting on this case and that it's taking a while.
So when you have to get a warrant, a material witness warrant on your own witness as a prosecutor, it becomes a box of chocolate and you don't know what you're going to get. So is he going to testify favorably for the government? Is he going to plead the fifth? Is he going to have a sudden case of amnesia? We don't know, but it is never good for a prosecutor to have to warrant their own witness for the grand jury.
All right, let's turn to our story number 2. This one out of Utah. The attorneys for Curry Richens, they filed a new motion ahead of her February trial accusing prosecutors of witness intimidation. And the defense is requesting all recorded calls and communications with trial witnesses. Curry Richens is charged with the 2022 murder of her husband, Eric, who prosecutors say was poisoned with a lethal dose of fentanyl. Charles, I'm going to start with you because they say the investigators are calling witnesses and harassing them, so the defense wants them to stop it.
yeah, and I see this in my work, and it's so short-sighted. It makes no sense. So you have two witnesses here. The first one is basically saying, hey, I cooperated, I gave them a statement, and they just won't leave me alone. Why an investigator would want to harass a witness is exactly goes to the point that Franz just made, which is you're not going to be able to use that witness. That witness is not going to be any good to you. And then the second one was, I don't know if that witness was cooperating under some sort of agreement or some sort of compelled testimony. But the same situation. I gotta cut you off,
Charles, because that's the time. I gotta move to Franz Borchardt so we can get everyone in. Franz, your take on this?
Nothing ruins a good prosecutorial case like good old-fashioned witness intimidation and creating issues. We talked about this tonight, creating issues where there's no issues. The case is going to be tried on Earth where it's a good case, not Mars. So they need to beam away from Mars back to Earth and stay on Earth. Leave these witnesses alone. Don't intimidate them. This is a good case. Why create unnecessary issues for the jury?
Madeline, final take on this one.
This is all they got. This is a terrible case for the defendant. And I'm embarrassed to tell people about it. It's, it's horrible. And so I think they're gonna try to latch on to every single thing they possibly can to try to lessen the burden that they have.
That's their job.
That's their job.
It's their job. All right, let's turn to our final story of the day. And this one has been grabbing headlines for a while. Major news for Latin singer Julio Iglesias. Today, Spanish prosecutors dropped the sexual assault charges against him that we've been seeing in the headlines all month. Spain's national court concluded that they lack jurisdiction over the matter. So earlier this month, prosecutors looked into claims that Iglesias assaulted 2 former employees at his residences in the Dominican Republic and in the Bahamas. Now, Iglesias has denied these allegations, and this seemingly ends things in one country, but let's get our power panel's take because, Madeline, this is not necessarily something where, when I first saw the news, I thought, okay, now this means that the claims are unfounded, but lack of jurisdiction does not mean that.
100%. So the issue here is that for PR, for him, this is very good. Hopefully for him, it will go away. But the fact is that the facts remain the same. There's no substantive change. And it could be reproduced in the proper court and finding the venue where it makes sense to try the case.
Charles, there's a lot that goes into investigating these kind of cases. When you heard the headline about it, what came to mind to you for a case like this and what it's going to take if it does pop up in a different courthouse?
Well, candidly, I don't know factually enough about the case. I know the allegations, but with regard to this specific decision, obviously the Spanish authorities looked at it. No, these women aren't from Spain. Nothing occurred in Spain, and they determined that the Bahamian and the Dominican folks are competent enough to pursue this on their own, and so they basically determined that for all the girls that Iglesias has loved before, they're just not going to deal with these 2.
All right, we got to move to Franz to get your final take on this. Franz, he is a major icon. I mean, this is shocking news for someone who is adored. What do you think about whether or not the Bahamas or the Dominican Republic will step up here, if there's any difference, and why they didn't just take the case in the first place?
So optics are right now in his favor. Any win for the defense, even if it's a jurisdictional win, is a win. And that's good, positive PR. Now, if Julio goes to a non-extradition country in the meantime, that may affect optics. I don't know if those jurisdictions are going to prosecute or not, but when we start prosecuting in different countries and different places, all of a sudden the moving parts get expensive, and that may be a gift to him.
Good timing.
No, great timing. You all had pretty good timing this time around. I know the timer's new for everybody, but it gets us to the end of the show when we have to hit our break. Franz Borghardt, Charles Milstead, and Madeline Somerville, we always appreciate you all coming on and joining us on Court of Opinion. So thank you for being with us, and thank you for connecting with us this hour. I'm Julia Jenaé, reminding you we all have opinions, but they should be rooted in the facts, and we should always be striving to respect the other's opinion, even when we don't agree. Find that person that sees things differently from you, and don't be afraid to debate with them.
This podcast is a production of Court TV. Go to CourtTV.com for more content, trials on demand, and to find out how to watch Court TV in your area.